Hello, hi. This is Mira and my conversation with Eva today. This is first in a row of hopefully series of conversations with therapists, counselors, people who are engaged in coaching uh, and other say positive psychology or psychology branches that are helping people to live better lives and be happier. So Eva is behavioral analyst and counselor, and she is at the moment working mainly with preteen kids. And before we uh, we actually started talking, and when the idea came to do this kind of interview, we were wondering what would be the best and the most beneficial for people that are listening and watching this to learn. And we mentioned anxiety, we mentioned quite a few other things, but uh, Eva is uh, Eva is doing something really interesting when it comes to using words and using speech and how analyze that and how the way we talk can affect people around us and I assume us as well. I don't know much about it specifically, but I'll just let Eva to say a little bit more about it and how that really works. What is it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Mira. It's so good to see you. So, the thing that I was thinking about and that I do think about a lot is language. And I've also thought about this as I speak different languages and how languages can really make connections happen and they can change connections if we're not always sure what words we're using and how they come across to other people. And I also feel like words that we say can impact us.
Mm-hmm.
So the words we're using ourselves as we talk have an impact on us. So it's not just about how they affect other people, it's about how they affect us as the speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think about that a lot too as I work with the preteens that I'm working with, and also just in my everyday interactions with other people, adults, myself. The things that I say, the things that come out of my mouth,
Mm-hmm.
I want to think about those because they are impacting me.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I want to make sure I impact other people in a positive way, and so that's important as well. But I think we often forget that it does have an effect on us too
Yeah.
when we use certain language, when we use certain terms,
Yeah. The
and speaking
things that
different
we
languages.
yeah the things that we say we have to think about it before, and we also hear that we can hear ourselves. So yeah, I mean, I would imagine that it does affect a lot. Mm.
Yeah, I just find it like, for example, when people say people are critical, for
Mm-hmm.
example. So if I'm saying more critical things, then I feel not as good. If
Mm-hmm.
I find myself saying more positive things or more encouraging things to other people, even though maybe it's helping them, I hope it is, but
Mm-hmm.
it also helps me feel a little bit better because if I'm always kind of down and negative, then it affects me as a speaker.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of an interesting thing. It's helping someone else, hopefully, too, to be
Mm-hmm.
encouraging. But when I'm saying it, it keeps me in a more positive frame of mind.
It's
I don't know if you have that experience.
It is. I remember when I was training to be an NLP practitioner. That was one of the focuses of how we affect others with the way we speak, and the way we speak and what we think affects our body posture and our facial expressions, and then all of that affects the person in front of us. But
Mm.
ultimately, it affects us, and you can feel your body going. either down when you're, in a negative mood, or being very
Mm.
judgmental, or more confident and feeling better, more open when you're talking about good stuff, when you're
Mm-hmm.
encouraging the other person, when you tell them. So, but what's really interesting is that, you know, it's really improving our social connections.
Right.
It's really affecting people around us in a really, really positive way. So instead of going around blaming, judging, and being negative about people around you, what they did, what they didn't do, doing something good, encouraging them, saying good things, uh, uh,
Mm-hmm.
helping them overcome something, ultimately affects you in a positive way. Isn't that what we all want, in a way?
Right. It's kind of our mission, or it can be.
Uh,
If you just have the idea for the day or for an hour or whatever it is, your goal,
mm,
maybe, or if it's something that you want to pay attention to, that we do that. It's kind of an experiment people
mm,
can try.
mm,
Let's see how it affects me. Let's see how it affects other people if
uh-huh,
I'm more positive. And I notice too, it's not that I don't have thoughts in my head that are negative.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
I have to just sort of shift those and decide what am I going to put out into the world.
Yeah, but how do you? I find that for me was always difficult to control my thoughts. Uh, like
Mm,
if I notice that there is a negative thought going around, and I don't want it there because it's not helping me, it's not helping anyone around me, just making me feel bad. The more I try to push that, uh, the more persistent it is. So I'm kind of learning to not pay so much attention on my negative thoughts. It's not that I want to push them away. I'm aware that they're there, but I'm not really putting too much attention to it. And it's you learn. I'm learning it still. What do you have anything to maybe suggest uh, in that
I think,
manner, the aspect?
well, I think that's a really good point because what do you do with those thoughts? I mean, do you let them pop up and do you try to push them aside, or how much do you entertain
Mm-hmm.
all those things that might be coming up that you don't like to think about or that I don't like to think about? uh, um, for me, what happens is I struggle. I struggle with trying to be positive sometimes, and I I'm aware of the struggle, and I think awareness is part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, I notice that it's easier. Like maybe I've sort of grappled with it for a couple days, or even if it's something big, like for weeks or months. And then at some point, there's kind of a corner that I turn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the awareness is a big piece of it,
Mm-hmm.
to know that I'm really working on something
Mm-hmm.
and that I want it to shift.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not aware, then you're not going to notice that you're having a challenge.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the other thing for me, because I've been dealing with a lot of change, is to be patient with myself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Biggie.
Because I'm often not patient and I want it to change right now because I don't like certain feelings.
No.
But if
Yeah.
I can be a little more patient,
Mm,
that helps.
yeah.
And maybe that can help other people too, to hear, okay, everyone's going through struggles, but we need to be nice to ourselves.
Yeah. Life is not perfect. Everybody's everybody's going through a difficult phase from time to time. It's just how we cope with that. And again, having a good social network is what I've noticed, and it's lots of research is talking about it. And you just mentioned it on the beginning. How we affect people around us
Mm-hmm.
uh, is is really important to understand that you're okay, even though you have some negative thoughts and you're going through a difficult phase or you have a problem, this or that. It's okay. It's still fine.
Right. And I've been hearing and reading this kind of concept um, more recently. I don't know if I read it in the past and then didn't pay attention, and now
Hmm.
I see it everywhere. But the idea that maybe your closest 3 or 5 people in your life can have such an impact on the direction your life takes, and to be selective of who you spend time with,
Mm.
because those are the people, like what we're talking about, that you're hearing, that are
Hmm.
putting out whatever their thoughts and feelings and input is into your world. And so you want those people to be something that's going to be helpful for you.
Hmm.
And so to be selective about those people. And, it doesn't mean not to talk to other people, but who are those people you let into your space, into your kind of psychic space, into your emotional space that you trust, that you're listening to.
Hmm.
And I found that really interesting because I like to talk to a lot of different people,
Hmm.
but I do keep my social circle, like my more trusted circle, pretty small. And so it helps me really think about who are those people that I'm spending time with,
Hmm.
and are those people that are going to help me.
Yeah. But have you? I mean, you mentioned that you're working with preteen kids, and
Right.
that's the big time of challenge for I guess for everyone. It was challenge for me, for all of us. All those different body
Yeah.
changers, hormones change, your thoughts. You're trying to fit in, finding where you are in the world.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. I
how
kind of
does?
like that
Hmm.
for that reason.
Yeah, yeah. Because that's the time when actually kids really need support, isn't it? And understanding.
Hmm.
Uh, but talking about the language that it's used, and I don't know, but the way you work, do you work in groups, or but have you found a change, a difference in a group when few of kids starts changing and paying attention on the language, or maybe caring about other people?
Yeah, I find that I'm really teaching
Mhm.
the kids that I'm working with how to be aware
Mhm.
and how to take care of each other, how to take care of themselves.
Mhm.
I think right now the focus is more, they have a lot of interpersonal things that they're working out with other kids. And
Mhm.
so the focus I end up taking is, how do you take care of each other? I mean, that's part of our school motto anyway, to take care of each other, to take
Mhm.
care of yourself, to take care of the school,
Mhm.
which I think is great.
Yeah, it is
Um,
pretty amazing.
and for them, I don't think they know yet, or they're really developing that idea of how to take care of another person. They're
Mhm.
sort of more about themselves. And so we're teaching about how to be nice to other people. What do your words do? How do they affect them? There's a lot of teasing, for example,
Yeah.
and name calling. And somebody might say, "Oh, I was just joking." And this other child is in tears. It's like, well, this child didn't see it that way. And
Yeah,
what can
seeing
we
the thing.
do?
Mhm.
Bridge that.
Yeah,
So
I
I
see.
find that really interesting, and I have to kind of go step by step with them about that this is, or can be, very hurtful, and we need to be careful with the words we use.
Mhm.
So it's fun because I think they're more open, and sometimes I have said, "What would your parents think?" Because they still have that connection at home.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of kids, I think they really know inside what's the right thing to do.
Yeah, they have still very good instincts, not so much spoiled with the world outside of them, isn't it? Well, at least I
Mm-hmm.
think that kids have really, really good instincts.
I do. I think it gets
Mm,
confused with so much information that they get
yeah.
from
Mhm.
other people and whatever they're
Mm,
doing, movies and music and
mm,
situations. So,
yeah. Okay, so I was just thinking, if there is there anything that we can maybe that you can uh, uh, say as a tip, is there any specific words that we need to pay attention on, or way of talking, something that has more influence than something else? Anything that could maybe help people that are listening and watching this to maybe pay attention more on
Well,
certain things?
something that I noticed, and I don't know if this is a therapy type of thing, but I've been noticing it as I'm talking to you, that I want to talk about myself. Like I can talk about, oh, people do this and people do that, but I also want to talk about what do I do and what do I think, and to use that phrasing
Mm-hmm.
um, about I and me, and so it's definitely a personal connection that
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of committing to a thought, that I'm committing to what I'm saying. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
just talking about, oh, people do this and people do that. It's more like, well, this is what I think
Mm-hmm.
and this
Mm-hmm.
is what I want to do. And it's a little bit scary because then I'm owning it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying everybody else sort of does it and maybe I'm in the crowd, and but if I'm saying it's from me, then it's definitely taking a little bit of a risk.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like the person listening might connect more with me and realize that I'm wanting to connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody likes that, and I notice a lot of people don't do that just out of habit, but it's an intentional way of speaking.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? Where you're saying from yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is much more powerful because then and people are more likely to take you seriously. I've noticed that as well. When you really own what you say, rather
Mm-hmm.
than talking about, others may think, and what would, you know,
Or
using
just
those
even,
generalizations rather than, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
or just even how you said that, like I'm trying to remember exactly what your phrasing was, but how, like you say you instead of, like maybe when you say I, then it's more about how I say what I think
mhm,
instead of how you say what you think. And it's a different tone, it's a different
mm,
feeling. And sometimes we want to be more general as we're
mhm.
talking, and sometimes we want to be more personal.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's a shift
Depends.
we can make.
Depends. Is there anything else, like I've for example, because of my NLP background, and then and language was a big part of it. Um, I've noticed. I usually notice when people use generalizations, like I'm always feeling this way. I'm always depressed.
Um,
I'm always sad. He's always doing that, like when it comes to relationships. Uh, and it's not always, but because people use that word always, never, ever, have to, should, that automatically affects into their belief system. And if I say I always feel like that, in that moment I actually really believe that I always feel the same thing, which is not true. But yeah.
right. That's an interesting way to think of it, that you're kind of setting yourself up for that happening all the time. If you're saying,
Mhm.
oh, I always do that, sort of like a bad habit. Oh, I always,
Mhm.
never make my bed or something like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave any room for change if it's set like that. And if you
Mhm.
say like that, right, I think it kind of convinces yourself that that's
Yeah.
not going to change.
Yeah. And I often, I like to mention, not often, like I always mention it, no, I don't. Uh, there's okay, in anatomy we know that there is a cortex, and there is different parts of brain. There's left and right side and all of that. But
Right?
I like to mention brain in a context of we have a thinker brain and a prover brain. And whatever
Mm.
thinker thinks or says, for that matter, we say our thoughts. No, the prover proves. So it's that you're setting yourself for failure, or you're setting yourself for not change uh,
Hmm.
with what you say, what you
Well, there's
keep
a
on
thing
repeating.
that we do, or that I've learned about too, in behavior analysis
Hmm.
and in talking about change and helping people change their behavior. And
Hmm.
this is in a school context, but it also works in life, I think, too.
Exactly. Yeah.
When someone says, don't do something,
Oh yeah.
like no talking, or don't cross the street on the red.
Mm.
If you give them the idea, then sometimes that is more common in the behavior than if
To
you say
actually do
don't
that.
X, Y, and Z.
Mm. Mm.
You want to rephrase it into something what you want to see.
Hmm.
So, for example, sit in your seat or walk across the street on the green
Yeah.
instead of,
Hmm.
and so say what you're looking for. And it can also be how you self-talk. What do I want to do? What do I want to see myself doing?
Yeah. Not
And that
not
can
what I
really
don't
change.
want. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
And so it's also kind of what we were talking about, the encouraging words, but
Mm.
there's also the idea in your brain when you hear it, and
Hmm.
when you're maybe even self-talking, thinking it in your mind,
Hmm.
it stays on that same behavior even though you're saying don't do this, like don't
Hmm.
eat sweets, for example, if you're trying to
Yeah.
diet, or
Mm.
I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know,
The
just
more
different things
exactly,
like
the
that.
more you focus on it, like that's interesting. I remember somebody saying years ago, and then I kept on repeating that. What are people that are on diets? What are they? What's the most of their thinking time spent on? Food. I need.
Right,
I
food, of
couldn't. I
course.
shouldn't eat this. I can't eat that. Maybe I should. Can I eat that? It's all about food. Uh,
Hmm.
but I want to say something that. Anyway, it's gone. See, you can talk yourself out of things as well.
Well, I also think too it can be very cultural,
Yeah.
because I think there are certain cultures that are very about rules, and they say
Yeah.
don't do this, don't do that,
Mm,
and then we have those tapes in our mind,
mm,
and I think it can be effective, but I do think there's limits to how
yeah.
effective it can be. I feel like it's more effective to say what you're looking for
Yeah.
than stop doing this and
Yeah.
stop doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And it has. And somebody will more likely. I don't know if you're aware of the experiment that was done years ago in America, when they found out that somebody will more likely do something for you if you mention the reason, even though that reason doesn't make any sense.
Oh, um,
I can't
I
remember what's
have
the
heard
name.
that, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like somebody is
it does
waiting in a
make
queue.
sense.
Yeah, somebody was waiting in a. There's a big queue to copy, copy stuff on a campus in a
Hmm.
copy place, and there's
Yeah.
a, a girl coming, and she's cutting the queue and says, "Can I just go and copy this? Can I go before you?" And they're like, "No." And then she comes later on and says, "Can I copy this because I fell asleep?" And they're like, "Yeah, okay,
Hmm.
go." So it's just saying because makes people think that that's really a good reason, and they're more likely to. And that's what we. I've also noticed. Yeah, this is. I remembered now what I wanted to say. I noticed when I keep on telling myself I have to do something, it sounds so difficult and hard for me, uh, and I'm more likely to push that away. I'm more likely to avoid it. I'm more likely to procrastinate. But if I rephrase that and I say to myself, I could do that. And maybe I can do it today or anything, just that it's not I have
Mm-hmm.
to or I should do. It automatically sounds differently, and I'm more likely to actually do that with no negative feeling of oh I have to and rejection or whatever is happening over there. So yeah.
Well, the analyst in me thinks, well, I wonder how you were raised. If you were
Oh
raised
yeah,
to
no.
have that, I had a lot of those messages when I was being raised about you should do this and you should do
You
that,
have to do that
and
now.
I
Yeah.
kind of rebel against that, and
Exactly.
so I
Yeah.
don't like
Yeah.
hearing it. But some people might very much connect to it and like that's successful for them. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
find
That's a
that
good
it's
point.
different for
Yeah.
different people.
That's a good. It depends of the messages that you've been receiving through the childhood,
Hmm.
where all our learning and connection to the world around us happen. Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
and yeah, and how did, like, if someone had the same upbringing I did and was a different personality and they sort of like someone saying that,
Mm. Yeah.
like for
Yeah.
me, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
so
I didn't
so
either,
I have a different
obviously.
reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe some people like it. Yeah.
But it's
So
not impossible to change. We can do that. We just need to be aware and observe and believe
yeah,
that we can change and live easier and enjoy life more.
yeah. I think the awareness is a big thing because
Mm.
if we don't realize, it's kind of the ignorance is bliss. If I
Mm.
don't realize that I don't know, living in poverty, or
Mm-hmm.
I am eating unhealthy food, or you know, don't have a lot of education, maybe, or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
things are, or you know, if I don't know those things, then sometimes it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like awareness is a pretty interesting concept to think about. And not that there isn't room for growth for any people that are not aware,
Yeah.
but I just feel like the awareness makes us more um, in tune to our situation.
Mm-hmm.
And, depending on if we feel like we can make the change, that can be frustrating. Like maybe we don't feel like we can get out of a bad situation with money or with our family, and we
Mm.
don't really notice what our options are. Then that awareness can be kind of sad and
Mm.
difficult.
Mm. But again,
And so I
yeah,
think, yeah, the awareness is the big piece.
is the big piece. And then when we know where we are, even though it's not maybe very comfortable in that moment when we are aware
Hmm.
that bad stuff is going on, and then maybe have some problems and stuff. Again, being aware will more likely, even though it's not easy, more likely get us out of it. We'll ask for help
Hmm.
or notice things that we need than if we are not
Hmm.
aware. Yeah, yeah. So it's
Agreed.
a
I agree.
mm,
Yeah, and then that's the piece where hopefully someone can have that sense of movement, of moving forward, of seeing progress, even when it's small pieces
hmm
of steps towards something different.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Patience. Yeah.
Right, the patience with life and ourselves and
Yeah, yeah,
change.
yeah. So
Yeah.
would that be a message for this today's conversation? Patience,
Hmm.
awareness, and it's possible to change.
Yes.
Mm, mm,
I think patience is a big deal. I think
mm.
so often people forget to be patient with other people, of course, but with ourselves
Yeah,
for the change.
mostly probably. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I'm already thinking about things that I could be more patient with, but one life is a contact sport. We need to learn how to enjoy it. Even sometimes it's not very comfortable. Sometimes it's a little bit painful, but it's all part of life, and it's all learning.
Right.
One big learning. Yeah.
And the yin and yang of being patient sometimes and other times maybe it gets you going to be impatient.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not always just one thing. Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
True.
So we are about half an hour into this conversation, and I think we said quite important things that people will benefit from, and we will hopefully continue these conversations about different topics. Uh, I would like to thank you for your time today. It's a big time difference in between us. It's 9 hours, so thank you for being patient and finding time to do this. I'm in
Oh,
a
it's my pleasure.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
my
in a
pleasure.
hotel lobby in Prague, taking an hour from my weekend away, and it's actually amazing. I like doing this, and it's a nice, it's a different atmosphere than I normally do these kind of things, and it's good to know that you can do it as well. Anyway, I can do it as well. Anyway,
Right.
uh, so I
Yeah,
would.
so I'm in California, and it's kind of cloudy today. I guess we could have introduced ourselves that way at the beginning to let people know where we are in the world.
Yeah, well,
But yeah,
uh,
it's exciting to be in contact with you across the world. It's
yeah, it's a
fascinating.
beauty of what we can actually do, and I'm just starting to discover, regardless of not being close, it can still, people can still have a connection and support each other and work with each other and live their purpose, regardless. So I would just like to mention that Eva is in California. She lives and works over there. Uh, and I would just like to ask you to maybe give your details or an email, something where people can contact you in case that they want your help or want to talk to you about something.
Sure, sure. So my name is Eva Caraher, Caraher, and you can reach me. Email is probably the easiest, and the email I'm using now is be the change, like how Gandhi said, be the change 3000 3000 at gmail.com. So be the change 3000, and I'll get your email. I'd love to hear from people.
Perfect. I actually really like that email. Do the change. Perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, it took me a minute. It took me some time to think about do I want to put together, because they ask what's your email address, so you can create all kinds of things. So yeah, it does have some meaning to me, definitely.
Exactly, exactly. Intuition coming up. Thank you, Eva, and we'll speak again soon. Have a good day.
I'd
Bye.
love to. It was wonderful talking with you.
You
Thank
too.
you. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. Bye.